What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JBsports back again with another one. Eddie Hearn, the P. Diddy of boxing promoters, the Puff Daddy of boxing promoters, always in the video. You know, he's a big time promoter. Make no mistake about it, especially over there in the UK. He's definitely the top promoter over there in the UK. Him and Frank Warren over there in the UK. Over here in the US, you know, he's definitely behind Al Heyman, who really ain't no promoter, but you know, he basically runs the PBC, and Bob Arum, aka the Bob Father. He's definitely behind those two guys. And he's probably battling Oscar De La Hoya for third place as far as top promoters here in the US. That's neither here nor there, man. You know, he's doing a good job before he's the number one promoter over there in the UK. Now, he was trying to be the top dog over here in the US. He came over here a couple of years back with the $1 billion DAZN deal. Allegedly, it was $1 billion. That's what he put out there for the media and for the public to see. I don't know if it was that much money. I think the potential deal could have been $1 billion, but I don't think it actually was no $1 billion deal. I don't think they just open the vault up and say, here you go, Eddie, $1 billion. Make all the big fights here in the US. I don't think it went down like that. But that's neither here nor there. Eddie Hearn, aka Eddie the Con Artist, is out here misusing these rematch clauses. Make no mistake about it. Just got through watching JoJo Diaz. Ooh, yeah! On his social media. On his social media page. I don't know if it was Instagram or Twitter or what it was, but he was on social media. He's basically saying, look, man, I'm negotiating with Team Haney, and that means he's negotiating with Eddie Hearn, basically. Eddie Hearn is representing Devin Haney. Now, Devin Haney is a quote-unquote free agent boxer, but he really ain't. Because basically what he's doing is he's calling these fighters out, and Eddie Hearn is coming with the bag to try to get these fights done. That's exactly what's going down in the JoJo Diaz negotiation. Now, Diaz is not happy that Team Haney is insisting on a rematch clause. One way. It's a one-way street. You know what happens when you go on a one-way street, you eventually gonna go to a dead end. And hopefully these negotiations won't come to a dead end, but JoJo Diaz said he a man of his word and he gonna fight Devin Haney. He said he's gonna beat Devin Haney twice. But for the fact that Devin Haney is insisting on him having a rematch clause, that has Eddie Hearn fingerprints all over it. Make no mistake about it. Eddie Hearn is the king of the rematch clauses. He has rematch clauses when Anthony Joshua is fighting, no matter if it's a mandatory or voluntary. He has rematch clauses with Dillian White. Yeah, no. Dillian White is a interim champion in the WBC. But he's got rematch clauses in his fights. And he's got a rematch clause with Devin Haney in his fight with JoJo Diaz. Now, the I's have not been dotted and the T's have not been crossed, but it's pretty much been a foregone conclusion that the fight's gonna happen on November 27th in Las Vegas, Nevada, aka Sin City. But make no mistake about it, JoJo Diaz is a mandatory. He don't have to take a rematch clause, but I think Eddie Hearn, what he did was he offered him around $2 million, which was more than he was gonna make in the Ryan Garcia fight. He was on tap to make $1.5 million for that fight. Ryan Garcia pulled out of that fight with a legitimate injury. He actually showed you a picture of him in the hospital. He definitely had an injury. He had to pull out of that fight. And JoJo Diaz kind of put himself in a box. He said, look, I'm fighting Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney next. And he said it in that order. So they let you know that he was looking at the Ryan Garcia fight first. That fight fell through. And now he's looking at Devin Haney. So he wants to be a man of his word, even though they come in with this rematch clause, which is, like I said, really don't make too much sense because it's a mandatory fight. It's a fight that's been ordered by the WBC, so why do we need a rematch clause? But that's Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn wants a rematch clause for his fighters. So basically, I got 2 chances to beat you. You only got 1 chance to beat me. You know what I'm saying? That's basically what it is. I don't got no rematch clause. If you beat me, you got to beat me twice. If I beat you, I can ride off until the sunset. That's Devin Haney, that's Dillian White, and that's Anthony Joshua, that's Eddie Hearn, king of the rematch clause. He's misusing these rematch clauses, ladies and gentlemen. The rematch clause was not supposed to be implemented on any mandatory fight. Now, voluntary, it's understandable. When AJ lost to Andy Ruiz in the biggest upset in boxing since Mike Tyson, Buster Douglas, especially in the heavyweight division. Yeah, you can see that. I can understand that, but AJ got a mandatory with Alexander Usyk. Alexander Usyk was a mandatory in the WBO. Why has he got to fight AJ twice? Got to beat AJ twice. But that's Eddie Hearn misusing the rematch clause. And he's been doing it for a minute now. And especially when you talk about these three fighters. You could arguably be the three top fighters under Matchroom Boxing. Now, Eddie Hearn will say, look, I'm just looking out for my fighters. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking out for my company. Basically, worst case scenario, my fighter loses twice, but we get two big fights and everybody make money twice. So I understand all that, but when you talk about the mandatory, you talk about you always pumping your fighters up. AJ, he ain't never ducking nobody. AJ is the best heavyweight in the division prior to the Andy Ruiz. Like, AJ got one of the best resumes in boxing. AJ ain't scared to fight any of these guys. AJ is ready to fight any of these guys. But these guys got to understand that AJ is a global star. AJ is the clear A side. They got to understand that when he fights AJ, you're going to make your highest purse. So don't be out here trying to make these crazy demands. You only made $2 million in your last fight. This, that, and the third. Always pumping up AJ. AJ, this great fighter. But you got this guy putting rematch clauses in mandatory fights. That's what I got a problem with. So we will see what happens and we will see what transpires. I just want to do a quick video, man, about Eddie Hearn and these rematch clauses. Yeah, no. Even in the Tyson Fury negotiation, that was a 2-fight deal. But I can't hate on that because that's both fighters gonna get a rematch no matter what. You know, they're gonna probably do the loser probably gonna get a lower percentage than he got in the first fight, but both guys are basically gonna get a second fight. That's what you call a 2-fight deal. But in the AJ Dillon and Devin Haney scenario, it's a one-way street. I don't like that, especially when you talk about mandatories. So we will see what happens and we will see what transpires. Let me know your thoughts about Eddie Hearn out here with these rematch clauses, misusing them in my opinion, especially when you talk about mandatory fights. Let me know your thoughts about Devin Haney versus JoJo Diaz. And basically, JoJo Diaz has got to beat him twice. If Devin Haney wins, he can move on to bigger and better things. He don't have to give JoJo Diaz a rematch. I believe rematch clauses should be used in very small fights. There's got to be fights that you can say, man, this is going to be a guarantee, going to be a barn burner, two great fighters. Let's put a rematch clause in there. You know, two champions fighting. Let's do a rematch clause. Basically, a 2-fight deal. I'm more in favor of that type of scenario. But this old, you know, every time this guy fighting, he fighting up in the Eddie Hearn promotion. He's getting a rematch clause where he basically, even if he loses, he's guaranteed to get a immediate rematch. He basically got to beat him twice. I ain't no fan of that. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. I'm trying to think of another scenario where I think Bob Arum talked about this. Bob Arum said, look, man, I don't believe in no rematch clauses. You know, you look at Vasily Lomachenko versus Teofimo Lopez. That wasn't no rematch clause. You had two champions fighting. Now, they were talking about them fighting at the end of this year when Teofimo was supposed to fight George Kambosos. It was a couple of months ago, and Teofimo's daddy was on TV shaking hands with Bob Arum, basically a verbal handshake to agree that Lopez would fight Lomachenko next in a rematch, but that fight never went off. That fight never went to fruition. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Let me know your thoughts about champions fighting champions and they're having rematch clauses, and even when champions fight mandatories when they don't have to be a rematch clause. Let me know your thoughts, man, in that particular scenario. In one scenario, I can see it, especially if you know it's going to be a great fight, but the second scenario, I don't like it one bit. Let me know your thoughts and subscribe to JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend, and I holla.